Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. Today is a discussion video between me and FREEDO talking about the new PTR Bastion changes. Well, not new, but current Bastion PTR changes. And we're going to discuss whether we think that should those changes go live, whether it's good for the game. So yeah, FREEDO, say hi.
Hey everybody, we thought it was very necessary to come out with this follow-up video about the Bastion PTR changes because there's a huge part of it that I think has to change. Now the good news is about 90% of what I said and we talked about between me and Liam on the first discussion video that we did about the Bastion PTR changes, I think holds true. The playstyle and direction that we'd like to see Bastion go is in that reposition, set up, a little bit more fluid, always has something to do. That all is really, really good. But the concern I have about how durable he is, I think is amplified with some of the examples that we'll be showing you on screen, that just normal Bastion in turret mode is really hard to kill, and since there's things in the game that can amplify your durability, namely Nano Boost, he can become virtually unkillable in this position, and this causes some questions. Now, I immediately didn't want to come to a conclusion that this is horrible for the game. I try to be really open-minded with this stuff, and I hope we all as a community can be when we think about new abilities in the game. So I kind of want to break down and give examples to the playstyles that this might create and the problems and the solutions that we maybe could come up with. Now, we have already seen what an unkillable killing machine can do when Nano Rein was a thing and people didn't really know how to deal with it, because back then Rein had speed, and I think that's a very key thing and what hinges on this conversation. When Nano had speed, Reaper or Reinhardt, without any direct CC, were basically unstoppable killing machines. Now, Bastion is that way even more so, but can't move. So if you get him set up in a position where he can see anything, and you pop Nano on him, the only solution that you have is Mei Wall, maybe Hack, maybe Sleep Dart, because no damage can kill him. Not Diva ult. Pharah, if her entire ult goes through, can kill him, but that's pretty unlikely. I mean, she barely can finish the sentence, much less get off an entire ult anyway. And there's so many things. Deadeye can't even lock onto a Bastion with Nano Boost. It runs out of duration, Eddie. This is crazy. So what do you think about this?
Well, I appreciate that Blizzard are trying to change Bastion up and make him more versatile, is the word they use. But obviously, Ironclad is way too much. I think the point you brought up about CCing something like that and comparing it to the previous example of Rein is very apt, because although this on one level looks outrageous, and it is, don't get me wrong, there will be more ways to get around it than there were previous metas. However, that doesn't mean that it should be in the game, as far as I'm concerned. Like, the problem is with the passive, the problem is with Ironclad. Obviously, that ability was constructed to not make him like super vulnerable, and that in combination with him being able to get into turret form quicker was meant to make him more versatile and make him able to do more stuff in the mid-round fight. The problem is like there's things like Nano in the game, as you've pointed out. But when you do combine it with things like Nano or being pocketed, it makes it really quite unpalatable. Now, it's quite a specific playstyle, but it's one of those playstyles that will really catch out people who aren't prepared for it. And I don't know how healthy it is for the game to have one thing be so strong, even if it's a very specific strength, unlike Nanoed Rein from many metas ago.
One good thing about Bastion improving in this way, just in general, is that I think a character like Sombra automatically gets better because you create a situation where finally a hack is more valuable than doing damage, because every other time just about you get behind somebody and you think to yourself, is it better to hack this target or to shoot it in the head? Well, Bastion can't take any damage, so Sombra all of a sudden is really good, but the thing is, what percentage of the game in Overwatch do we want to be ability, counter ability, rather than skill shot? It already has so many abilities and stuff going on that I love, but to some degree, not being able to shoot your way out of a situation ever, and you must come to an engagement with a Mei Wall, a Sombra hack, or even Defense Matrix to even establish a fight, I think that's really scary. Now, part of the problem too is like a duel between Bastion and Diva, whereas before, I would say Diva's really good against Bastion, and she still is in a way, but the problem is once she gets in on the Bastion, he's just going to tear her apart because D.Va physically can't do enough damage to even put a dent in Bastion right now. Now, Defense Matrix is still good as sort of the tip of the spear of an initiation, where if you soak up the Bastion's turret damage, you can overwhelm it and your team can still get around it. Like, that's still the same strategy that you use, but the whole him not being killable thing, like, maybe it's more viable you overwhelm him and then you kill everything else, because if you focus the Bastion without CC, without like freezing him with Mei, putting up a wall, hacking him, whatever, if you can't get any of that done, you probably could almost kill the rest of his team faster. That's sort of the problem, how this is going to work in a team fight that I'm afraid about.
So one solution is to drop Ironclad's armor buffing potential way down from 35%, cut it in half, maybe even a little bit more, because 35% is an incredible amount. Actually, when you think about that, that is ridiculous. I mean, my favorite example is you can't high noon him if he's nanoed. You just can't even lock onto him. You don't even have physically enough time. I mean, as if you would stay alive for those 6 seconds anyway is a bit of a moot point, but you can't even do that. So definitely one of the solutions is to bring Ironclad way down. So what do you think, Freedo?
I mean, that's exactly it. I think that really sums it up. If that was the case, then he would feel like you could make a play on him while he can still make plays on you, because I think that's the most annoying part about this type of ability in the game, is that you can't counteract it, right? Whereas he'll still be able to fluidly get in and out and heal himself and run away if you don't punish him, but he will be punishable if that Ironclad amount isn't so high. It gets kind of boring, I guess, to say like, well, this percentage number should go down, but I think that really does solve a lot of it, because so much of the character was so fun to play when I was testing him out that you get in and out of turret really quick. If the enemy starts to get positioning on you, you can get out really quick, run away and heal yourself. That all is really fun, but I don't think we want a world where he's more durable than how he was back when he had a shield attached to him. I don't know if everyone remembers that, but in the beta days, he had like a mini Reinhardt shield on him. And then I think they did at some point try this Ironclad thing before. So I'm not exactly sure why it's rearing its ugly head again, but that's basically it. I think then Bastion will be in a really fun spot. And if we decide that that isn't enough and he's still way too one-dimensional, they could maybe make him even just a little bit faster in those other areas, tweak other things about either his hitbox, his health pool, I don't know, but it can't be that he's unkillable when he's in turret form. I think that makes him even worse than he used to be, really, because before he was this really high-risk character that honestly, I don't think any of us had a problem with. I'm fine with characters being really high risk, high reward. It's a little poor for balancing, quote unquote, if you want parity amongst the characters, but that's sort of an illusory utopia that I don't think we're ever going to get to anyway. So with that being the case, we were fine with Bastion the way he was. Now, the direction they're moving him is an innovative and progressive way to try to get characters to not be so peaky in their performance, which I think is noble, but we also can't have them being broken either, because we've kind of seen this before with like Ana had a bunch of problems, so they tried one thing and then they tried like 5 things, and then before you know it, they nerf something else, and then Ana's way too good because now Discord was good. That sort of thing is going to happen with Bastion, I feel. If you put him in that spot, you like are positioning him to be way too outrageous in that way. So hopefully we can avoid that. And that's why we want to speak out before this goes live, because if you haven't played this already, you don't know how frustrating it is to go up against the Bastion that's unkillable, you're going to be upset when it just launches into your game. So hopefully we can get ahead of that.
It's going to be like walking across a road and not seeing a train coming. That's what it's going to feel like. If you haven't played the PTR, it will really shock you, I think. I mean, there's been quite a few videos about it, including this one, that are trying to point it out. But obviously, like, the PTR is kind of abstract to a lot of players. A lot of players don't really play it. I hate to say that, but they don't. They don't go in, they don't go and test the numbers, all that kind of stuff. One thing I did want to say is I've always had this, like, crazy idea that you could rework Bastion. And actually, the way his turret is now with Ironclad and getting nanoed feels like an ultimate, right? You are being ulted, obviously, you're being nano boosted, but it feels like an ultimate form, you know? It feels like, oh, I press Q, I turn into this unmoving, unkillable turret that just kills absolutely everything. That's more like an ult to me. Whereas his little tank that roams around and occasionally fires like a little bomb doesn't feel good enough in comparison. You know, I'm smiling while I say that because I love Bastion. I think he's a really cute character, and I would love to see him like used more. I don't mean that in I want to see that play style that we're talking about in this discussion used more. I say I just like the hero. I like the character. So if you reworked it so that his little tank, you know, that could like drive up walls or something was his second form, it did less damage or whatever, but had more armor, whatever, a cute little tank rolling around, and then his ultimate was this unkillable death turret, I would, you know, it's something I'd quite like to see, but as I say, that's a digression. That's kind of a little off on a little tangent.
I actually think that's a great idea, but obviously it's not going to happen. But it's interesting to think about because his tank form, because his shot is a projectile, it isn't as immediate as having like a flurry of bullets, right? Whereas right now his turret form, it's a lot easier, I think, to hit and to burst something down than it is with the tank projectile. So with that being the case, it's more devastating when he has nano. And a lot of times, really, a lot of heroes in Overwatch are more lethal out of their ultimate. Like, for instance, Pharah is sitting still in the sky, so she dies instantly. The same with McCree, Bastion, and sometimes his turret is way better than his tank form. That's an interesting point that I think probably make more videos about in future. But if his alternate normal form was tank form, it would actually be more balanced in this way if it was more ironclad. But because it's a turret that has tons of ammo that can melt you, he can't actually simply take a ton of damage. It's just not really going to work for the game, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I would see Ironclad at 35% be more reasonable on a tank that had a projectile. But bear in mind, I'm not saying the same damage that his projectile has in his ultimate right now. No, obviously you'd have to lessen it, so it was more in line with like other projectiles like Pharah or something like that. But Ironclad in that form, where you could just like, I'd love to see him like drive up walls and stuff, you know, get to places and like shell flankers, or, you know, people that are sat back in like positions to support their team, you know, Ana's at the back of the map or whatever, or widows, or just get at people in this little tank form. And, you know, front facing damage is, you know, you have a better resistance by 35%. That makes sense to me. But in terms of like a, you know, just a death turret, I don't think that's a situation that anyone really wants. Obviously, that's why we're making this video. So
an interesting thought is that in MOBA games, sometimes heroes won't have an ultimate, but they'll have multiple forms. So if Bastion had, let's say, those 3 forms, but no ult, I wonder how they could balance the character that way. That's just some food for thought. I wonder if it will eventually get a character that doesn't have an ult and their kit is more leaning towards their normal form, but that might be a little too overpowered considering there's no abilities in the game. But I'm sure like Heroes of the Storm has this as well. Interesting thoughts, but I think generally speaking, Blizzard wants for all the heroes, if they can help it, to try to have them all be applicable in as many situations as possible. And that's a noble thing. You don't have to have that if you have way more characters, though, which is what I would like to see. And then it would be permissible to have some that are really niche because you just have such a big cast. So get working, Blizzard. Let's have 100 heroes by next year. That's what I want.
I agree. Okay, guys, that's it for today's video. Leave a like if you liked our discussion. Also, please check out our Discord. It's one of the largest Overwatch communities on Discord. If you want to see us tilt live for your enjoyment, come over to our Twitch stream, which will be linked in the description. And obviously follow the Your Overwatch Twitter. It's where you can find updates about new videos and streams. I've been Eddie the Chump. He's been FREEDO. See you guys later.
Bye.